First of all, let me welcome you one more time to the Education Alliance Play Every Day Symposium. It's very exciting to see this event happen. And I would like to welcome all the presenters and to congratulate them on participating in this very interesting event, and also the audience that is joining us. It is the second part of the session called Social Emotional Learning and Early Years Learning. And my name is Serhiy Kovalchuk. I'm with the International Development Research Center. And I'm going to be a moderator for this session. In this session, we are going to have 4 presentations. And I know that the original plan was to show the videos, but I understand there were some technical difficulties. So presenters are encouraged us to give a brief overview of their project, of their presentation. But I know that some of you will still try to play the video. So I will leave it up to you to decide how you would like to proceed. But I would just like to remind that we will have 7 minutes for each presenter. After that, we will have kind of a roundtable discussion where we can talk among ourselves about the topics that you will be presenting in your work. And also, I encourage the audience that is watching us to submit their questions via chat. We will make sure to leave time to answer those questions. So please write down your questions and feel free them to post either during the presentation or after, when we are done with the all presentations. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenters and pass the floor to them. We have, and I would like to apologize in advance if I don't pronounce your names correctly. But our first presenter is going to be Maria del Pilar Rojas Quimbay. She is the program manager with the World Literacy Foundation Sunbooks. And she is going to talk about the Sunbooks project. Then the second presenter is going to be Aaron Hemphill. He is with the SIL Mexico, and he is going to talk about the app that they have developed to preserve minority languages. And then after that, we will hear from Silent Richmond, who is the ICT team leader with EDC. And he is going to talk about an interesting topic about the scaling training for the mental health counselors, how they use digital tools in training. And then we will conclude with the presentation by Cliodhna, who is the head of education at Ubongo, and she will talk about the kind of the tool that they are using to early childhood development of children. And we know the importance of the early years development of children on their kind of success thereafter. So without further ado, to pass the floor to our speakers, and Maria is going to go first. Again, I just would like to remind that each of you will have 7 minutes to present, and I'm going to time you, so I'm going to be strict about that. And the way how I'm going to let you know is that when you are 2 minutes to the end of your presentation, I am going to type that in your chat, and when you have 1 minute left, I'm also going to type it, and then when you reach your time, I'm going to write, please stop. So yes, remember about this 7 minutes, and thank you all again for participating in this session, and especially the audience that is joining us. Maria, the floor is yours.
So first of all, I would like to say thank you for inviting us to participate in this event. This is very exciting for us. Right now I'm in Australia. It is 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm from Colombia, and I'm the program manager of Sunbooks. This is a project in Africa. So let's start. Let me share my screen here. I don't see my screen here. I'm looking for my PowerPoint to share. Oh, here you go. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is our program. Sunbooks is a purpose-built solution for the off-the-grid learner. Our program is because we are aware of the situation and the challenges that many off-the-grid locations are living, and is specifically related to the lack of access to electricity in rural areas, and also the lack of access to internet. And the main focus for us is literacy. So we know that there's lack also of books and educational resources, which has increased the rates of illiteracy in these African countries. So we are located in these African countries, in Kenya, Uganda, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Nigeria, and we're also developing the project in Guyana in South America. So our project consists of the hardware is a 10-inch tablet with a protection case, and if necessary, if in the specific locations, in some specific locations, we use a solar panel, which is to provide and to charge the tablets. So this is very important for these communities, because with the solar panels and with these resources, they have been able to have hundreds of books and games and songs and different resources which are very relevant for their learning. So like the software, we use a software called Tendril, which can be used in tablets, phones, computers, but for our locations, we use tablets. I have it right here. So we use an offline app. The app works once we create the content and we upload it on the software, we're able to download this app on the tablets, and the communities can use it without using internet. So this has been a good resource for teachers, help us to create the content and also to download and learn how to use these technologies for the children. So I'm going to show you here how it works.
Maria, I'm sorry, I'm not sure that we can hear the sound of the presentation. There is no audio, so we can just see the image.
Okay.
So you might want to talk.
Yeah, thank you for telling me, because I was like, okay. So like I was showing this short video related to how the Tendril works. So we use these different elements, technology, resources, and community, for these goals of education, of literacy. So yeah, mainly the software works with using these templates, and we, with the support of the communities, we create the content. I'm gonna move to this one. So we have here one of the teachers like creating and producing these videos, and we have some partners that have helped us with the creation of the resources. So then we are able to ask teachers and community members to send us the information and the creation, games and activities to the WhatsApp, to via WhatsApp or to the emails. So they send us like the models, the games, and we are able to put it on the platform, and after download it on the tablets. they do this like every month. They go to an internet cafe and they download the resources, and once that happens, they can enjoy all these different resources and games. So here, this is another key element that we use for the development of content and games. So we involve children also in the creation of either books or the games. So sometimes they also do it, and teachers help us to produce this content with them. We have created like different type of games, and these are our main characters. So we have tried to personalize this a little bit, like taking into account like the children's, their likes, their desires. This connects absolutely with socio-emotional skills. So like this is like, I would say like for us, the most important of the program, and Sunbooks has been developing not only cognitive skills, but also social-emotional skills through the development of these type of activities in which we connect communities and we involve the children as and empower them to be part of the creation. So for example, I have here, this is an activity which is related to the curriculum in Uganda. So here it's talking about people in our community. So we have taken photos from people, like from real teachers there, from real different roles they have there. And then we create the activities. They are like simple games. These children are like in the, like some of them are from 4 years old to 10 years old sometimes, because some of them are just learning English as a second language, some of them as a first language. So we try to develop like the English level for A1. And yeah, it has been great to have the support of the community involved in the process of creation, because this has definitely connects emotionally the children with the activities. So we have also taken into account the big 5 domains of social-emotional skills. And here, like, I'm gonna mention an example. So this is a simple activity we developed, which is drawing letters, and then they are able to rub like the letters and delete, and then create or write more words. So if we consider these remote communities like this, most of these children have never had contact with any kind of these technologies. So for them, it's just really amazing to be able to be in touch with technology and being like using these resources. Some of them were saying like, "Oh, this is magic," because they were able to change things there, use their fingers for doing that. So we are really motivating them and encourage their curiosity and their creativity. So this connects completely with this task achievement, social-emotional skills necessary. So these other type of activities have also promoted teamwork and responsibility. It is amazing to see how these children are really taking care of the others, and while they are playing, they are also being responsible of caring for their partners, like who takes turns, how we're going to take care of this device, and how we can all learn and participate. So this is like our main menu. We have activities.
Maria, I'm sorry, but your time is over. So I will give you 1 more minute to finish up, okay?
Okay, sure. So this is like our main menu for the, oops, our main menu for the tablets. So we have some literacy activities, books and games and songs. We divide it into 3 levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. And in level 1, they have like a set of activities in which they go step by step. And in each step, they are getting some points to move to the next step. So that has really motivate them, and also the teachers. So one of the other things we are doing is training teachers and training them for strategies for literacy and games, like how we can use this and how we can make learning more joyful and not seeing like this is just like we're gonna learn something, like it's just absolutely in terms of the cognitive aspects, but how can we also encourage and develop some social emotional skills through the use of technology. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Much, Maria, for your presentation. Very interesting, and I encourage your audience, if they have any questions, please post them in the chat for Maria, and we will try to get to your questions at the end of this session. Without further ado, I would like to invite Aaron from SIL Mexico to deliver his presentation.
Great, thank you. Hello, everybody. And Serhiy and the tech folks, also feel free to just tell me any comments directly, because when I screen share, I think I'm not going to see anything in the chat. All right. Okay, so Serhiy, are we seeing my screen?
We can see your screen, yes.
Great. Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Aaron Hemphill with SIL. My organization, SIL, is a nonprofit serving around the world with a vision to see people flourish in community using the languages they value the most. Alpha Tiles is a literacy game app for Android phones that is currently under development. Our vision is to see this game adapted for the minority language communities of the world. Let's start by covering some background issues. There are 7,117 living languages in the world. Here, each box represents a living language somewhere in the world. In the top right corner, you can see the top 100 most spoken languages of the world. On one hand, 74% of the people on Earth speak one of the world's 100 most spoken languages. On the other hand, the top 100 languages represent only 1.4% on Earth. For the 2 billion people who speak one of the other 7,000 languages as their first language, learning to read in their local language provides new opportunities within their own community and is also the gateway to eventually learning one of the top 100 languages for engagement with the wider world. As if the challenge is not daunting enough, there are many different writing systems around the world. Even for a simple spelling game, the world's different writing systems present numerous challenges. Finally, there exists a third challenge for kids who we can call Carlos. When he begins school, he will transition from a home environment where only the Matpa language is spoken to a school environment focused on literacy in Spanish, a language he does not know. Research shows that children who first receive some literacy instruction in their mother tongue will perform much better when they begin to read in a second language. What tools can we provide to kids like Carlos? With children in 7,000 other languages in similar situations, what can we do? Let's take a look at some educational apps that already exist. Here's a map of the Spanish-speaking countries in the Western Hemisphere. There are 553 indigenous languages throughout these countries. Okay, 553 living languages in the Spanish-speaking countries of the Americas. In the Google Play Store, our research found that there are 159 apps focused on these languages. Most common types are dictionary apps, illustrated vocabulary apps, and phrasebook apps. Given that for certain languages there are several different apps available, it is a safe estimate to say that more than 90% of these languages have no language-focused educational apps available for them on the Play Store. Out of these 159 apps, 46 have some kind of active response, such as multiple choice. However, only 6 apps have some kind of spelling activity. Let's take a quick look. Now, I don't want to criticize these apps. They've accomplished something it appears that nobody else has, and so these apps are worth downloading and checking out. But to highlight the unique space that we envision for Alpha Tiles, 3 of these apps assume a good degree of Spanish literacy. In contrast, Alpha Tiles does not make any assumption of pre-existing literacy. And while the other 3 apps are much friendlier to those beginning to read, the lone spelling activity involves typing a word from memory. The apps do not scaffold a series of spelling activities. So we researched 159 apps and did not find a single app that has a series of spelling activities that incrementally develop skills. So this is where we hope Alpha Tiles can make an impact. And by the way, if you'd be interested in collaborating together on researching what apps exist and what features they have, please contact me. And we're going to skip the demo at the end. I'll throw a link in the chat to a 90-second demo. What you're seeing here is a map of the existing games we have. In game 1, people are exposed to the letters, their alphabet. And so they can click on the magnifying glass and it'll bring up all the words in the database that begin with that letter. And in any of the games, you click on a picture to hear it. Then in the next game, game 2, you're identifying initial letters. If you move down, it gets more complicated where you choose from 6 or 18 letters. Next, we have memory. And again, moving down, it adds more options. In the 4th game, you're building the word by choosing between pairs. And in the 5th game, you're identifying the correctly spelled letter. And then the last series of games, you first spell the word by choosing only from the necessary letters. Second, you choose from a larger batch. And then finally, you spell the word from a keyboard. And so we're working on a lot of other games. And some of this needs to be sequenced based on what the literacy specialists have been telling me. So this is a map of what we currently have. Okay. So that we have 3 design concepts. We want to make a simple app for a large number of languages. We are following these concepts: minimal setup, zero text interface, and broad design. An important question for us is, what is the simplest package of build files required to make the app? The language community provides words, audio, images, and a keyboard list, and they also provide their game tile list. For example, the sequence CH from English can be represented on 2 distinct game tiles or on a single game tile. And so we work with language communities to help them make the decisions and help set up the games. I've lost my space. Okay. Next, by using a zero text interface, we simplify the process of making this app for many different languages. And finally, broad design. With 7,117 living languages, we can't proceed one app at a time, incorporating all kinds of features particular to just one language. We are not focused on language-specific customization. Our hope is to develop this app for many languages, but at the expense of not developing tailored solutions for each individual language. Interested in collaborating? And you might say, well, I know there are dozens, maybe even 100 languages in the US, but I'm not sure they're the kinds of languages that you're talking about here. There are actually 650 languages spoken in the New York metropolitan area, and these neighborhoods have even been mapped out. There are numerous opportunities to support minority language literacy initiatives all across the US and certainly around the world. Wherever you are at, we would love to hear from you. And I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you all.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for your presentation. And it's very interesting to hear how you use technology to tackle a very important issue of minority languages, right? And again, if you have any questions for Aaron, please post them in the chat. And I can see that he is sharing a link to the demo. Please feel free to watch it when you have a time. And I would like to pass the floor right now to Simon Richmond, who will talk about skilling training for mental health counselors, digital tools for role-playing new skills. Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Serhiy. Good day to everyone, or good evening if you're in Australia and it's 1 a.m. Congratulations, Maria. I'm very impressed. I am going to talk for a few minutes about a pair of apps that we have made to help with the training of mental health counselors. We're working with Johns Hopkins University. I'm from Education Development Center, I should have mentioned. And Johns Hopkins have a really fantastic training protocol that they call SIDA, which they use to train mental health counselors around the world. People who can then return to their small communities and address local mental health issues like depression, trauma, substance abuse, the kinds of human problems that plague every community. These are often overlooked in development in favor of more life-threatening health issues. But SIDA, this training protocol developed by Johns Hopkins University, is really fantastic. It can take somebody from a rural village somewhere and in just 10 days, train them up to be able to go back to their community and help provide counseling to all of their peers. So it's a fantastic, very intense training, very successful. The only problem with it is that it's so clinically precise, it's proved very difficult to scale. When you train your first group of counselors, they do very well. But when that group then uses a cascade to train the second generation and the third generation, it breaks down quickly. So this group from Johns Hopkins, the original master trainers, are having to do worldwide trainings themselves in groups of 15. So they're literally flying around the world, training 15 people in this country, training 15 people in that. It's quite inefficient. So they came to us, to EDC, and asked us if we could help them develop a digital version of the training. And when we looked at it, we concluded that we couldn't. The training was so intense, it needed to be delivered by a human, and a completely online version wasn't going to work. But we decided that we could augment the human trainer with a couple of ICT support systems in the form of 2 apps. And so I'd like to show you those apps right now. I made a video that goes through the details. And since we're having problem audio playback, I hope everyone can see my screen. What I'm going to do is just play this and then read the narration that should go along with the picture. So I hope that this timing will work out. But here we go. Please double click the icon if you need to see the screen better. So the digital training support for CETA comes in the form of 2 apps, one for the trainer and one for the trainees. The apps are pre-installed in a set of training tablets, which are shared among participants at the training, 1 tablet each. The trainer uses her tablet to drive the instructional activities from the front of the room by connecting it to a speaker so that all can hear. The trainees use their tablets as personal reference tools, turning to them to look things up as directed by the trainer. All instruction follows a 3-step cycle of didactics, modeling, and role play, which is repeated over and over again for each new concept introduced across the 10 training days. The app's menus hold different types of media needed for each step, and they break down like this. The media support for didactics is used to explain a new idea or skill, and it's housed on the trainer's app. This is direct instruction, but it's formatted according to the rules of IAI. So audience is actively engaged in listening to the new ideas. The voice of this virtual trainer becomes the content expert companion to the live trainer, while the tablet's voice addresses everyone in the room, and the tablet screen provides private visual prompts to the live trainer. So in this video, we can't hear it, but the tablet is broadcasting a question to the room, and the tablet screen is sharing the answer with the trainer. So while music plays in the background, 30 seconds might be provided to the room for someone to provide a live answer. The trainer can then evaluate that answer and tell them if they're correct or not by comparing it to what's on the screen. Now, here's another use. The tablet is describing this bridging activity, and it's asked the trainer to have drawn this diagram on the screen, on the blackboard. Now, luckily, our trainer here, who is a master trainer, knew the diagram beforehand and pre-drew it. But if she didn't know this picture, the tablet would be telling her what to draw before it proceeded to explain what everyone in the room was looking at. So that's how IAI works from the trainer's tablet. The second step is modeling the new skill that comes next, and this is supported from the participants' tablets. All participants turn to their own tablets and put in headphones to watch a video of a scripted counseling session in which the new skill is modeled. This is a dramatization of a counseling session. It's carefully scripted so the counselor actor can demonstrate the application of the new skills, and the client actor can react accordingly. So this is a reenactment of a counseling session from a victim of a rape. So the third step in the role play is the role play, and 2 different apps have 2 different tools to support this. The trainees app is fairly simple. It provides instructions on the characters that the trainees must perform as. For example, a trainee playing a client might be told something like, you are a 24-year-old female who's just lost her baby in a house fire. Now, you're a willing participant in the counseling, but you're in shock, etc., etc. Meanwhile, the trainee playing the counselor might be told something like, please lead your client through steps 6 to 10 of the trauma element that we just learned. So while they're role-playing, they're being observed, and the trainers are walking the floor with their own apps. And an important part of the training is that the people are evaluated and they are certified to become counselors after the training. And that certification score comes from these role play observations, as well as some other data points. So the trainer's app is really, it's designed to hold a simple rubric and an observation form so that she can quickly note each participant's performance as she monitors them. And then these scores are fed into the trainee's digital gradebook. So all of these pictures come from a beta testing which was run in Zambia. And the idea is that we will use these augmented tools in the training cascade. And COVID has delayed the design, but what we found from this beta test is that the original, is that the trainers reported that even though they were normally, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, even though they were normally experienced trainers with the live training, using the tech was much easier for them because it meant that they finished each day with a lot more energy. The bulk of the work was done by the machine, and they were able to focus on the more human aspect. The machine does well what machines do, which is relaying information in a uniform way. They were then left with the more human job, what humans do well, which is communicating individually, empathizing with the people in the training, understanding where the trainees are misunderstanding things and being able to custom explain something. So there's kind of a hybrid of human and machine in this system, which we hope leads to a much more high fidelity rollout on a cascade and the ability to take very tough social and emotional content and relay it out at scale. So that's a summary of the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon, for your presentation. As you were speaking, I was thinking whether similar models can be actually used in teacher training, but maybe it's something that we can talk more during our roundtable. And I would like us to go to our last presenter in this session. Again, my apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Cliodhna, who will be speaking about supporting the whole being, the whole child well-being through edutainment, and she is part of the organization called Ubongo. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Cliodhna. I'm head of education at Ubongo. I'm going to share my screen, and you can just click twice to be able to see the presentation. But I'm going to go through quite quickly because I know that you also have access to these videos. So Ubongo is an organization that was started in 2013 in Tanzania, and the aim was to bring fun educational learning opportunities to children using edutainment as the means of education. We now consider ourselves to be Africa's largest classroom. We have more than 17 million kids learning with us every month through TV, radio, and other sources. And we do that through some main brands. So for early years, that's around the 3 to 6 year old age group, we have a cartoon called Akili and Me, and that teaches numeracy, pre-literacy, socio-emotional learning, and also health and other skills. And it also focuses on English as a second language, which I'll come to more of later. It's available in many languages, and I'll also talk a little bit later about how we go through that process of adapting our content. Then for the primary school age children, we have another cartoon called Ubongo Kids, and that's targeting the 7 to 14-year-old age group and teaching STEM subjects, digital literacy, and also life skills and socio-emotional learning as well. At Ubongo, we also realized that it's very important to engage parents and caregivers in their child's learning. So we started a caregiver-facing show called Akili Family. And the reason being that we wanted to create a separate offering so that parents wouldn't feel like, you know, if parents sometimes see a cartoon, they feel that maybe we're just targeting the children. So in Akili Family, we also incorporated some live action with real parents sharing their stories and sharing examples of ways that they have engaged their children in learning and play at a young age. And then recently we also launched Ubongo Toolkits, which is a platform where partners, educators, and the media can actually access all of our content for free and download it. And that was very important to us to ensure that our content gets out to as many children as possible. It's also possible for organizations to download that content onto a USB stick and then bring it to kids where they might not have access through the normal TV and radio channels. So as I said, we don't favor any particular media platform. Our approach is to put our content out to in as many ways as possible. So we use a combination of TV, radio. We also use interactive voice response where parents can actually call a number for free and get a call back with some songs or games or stories to play to their children. We also recently launched a WhatsApp chatbot where caregivers can interact with the chatbot and get access to our content directly on their phone as well. So our process is very child-centered. We use a process of human-centered design, and we consider children and caregivers to be co-creators in our process. And we use that. We also work in co-creation with other partners and funders, and then we distribute our content to millions. So it's a mass media approach. We also rigorously evaluate our content just to ensure that it's having the desired impact on learning outcomes for children. So this is just an early example of our human-centered design process. So you can see the different stages of the character of Akili. So she started off at the first left-hand corner of the screen and progressed all the way to the Akili character and logo that is loved by millions of children today. So through both of our programs, Akili and Me and Ubongo Kids, we focus a lot on social emotional learning. And the reason behind that is that we learned that 44% of children aged 3 to 4 in Africa have low cognitive or socio-emotional development. And we also know that social emotional development has huge impacts for children on their future earnings, even on criminality, school performance. And so to get children out of that cycle of poverty, it's really important to build their social emotional skills from a young age. So we started to work with our users, so working with children to find ways to build their social emotional skills. And we realized through testing that one of the areas they needed most support was in recognizing emotions. So we created a specific segment which goes out in every Akili and Me cartoon. And it focuses specifically on social emotional learning, and it takes an interactive game-based approach. So children are not expected to just be passive viewers. Instead, they'll be asked to help. If Akili is feeling sad, they'll be asked to point to the sad face, and they'll also get some feedback through the show as well to help them with that. Also, then after the first round of segments went out, we got some feedback that we use a lot of animal characters, and we got some feedback that the kids really related mostly to the human characters as they were expressing their emotions. Although they love the animal characters in other ways, for them to really connect and empathize with the characters, it was important to also include more human characters. And we also wanted to show positive examples of boys expressing their emotions, because it's something that's not always socially acceptable. So we introduced Achilles' friend, Huruma, and you can see here, it also gave an opportunity for us to show how children can help each other manage their emotions, and also how they can interact with their caregivers. So we have done some research to learn more about the impact of edutainment, and specifically on the Achille and Me show. And what we found was very interesting. We found that for kids that had a higher knowledge of Achille and Me, they also had a knowledge gain in social emotional learning. So they had a knowledge gain of 7.4% in social emotional learning. And this showed that the recognition of characters, which suggests that they're very familiar and watch the show, also has a correlation, and so that suggests to us that the content is very impactful in building socio-emotional skills. Now, at the moment, we realize we're in a very unique situation where now more than 1 billion kids are out of school around the world. So we wanted to also find a way to respond to this challenge, given that we're in the homes of so many millions of children around the world. So we asked the question, how do we keep young kids healthy and learning? So our response had 3 phases initially, and we're now moving to phase 4. Our first one was to release all of our content library for free for non-commercial use. So that means that any broadcasters or education partners, basically anyone anywhere in the world, can access our content free of charge. We also worked with partners to integrate our content into their own responses. So for example, there are governments who are sending out television broadcasts to support learning. So we also worked with them to make sure that our content went into those programs. We also launched a radio show specifically to bring play-based learning into children's homes. So through the radio show, it targets the entire family, not just the kids. And we actually ask the kids and the parents or caregivers to play together in their homes. So through the show, we use a character that guides them through different games, and it gives them time to play those games throughout the broadcast. And we also have been developing weekly PSAs and health content to teach kids and their parents how to stay safe during the time of COVID. We've gotten some initial feedback. It's been really helpful and positive to learn. So the majority of parents said that it really did improve their quality of life, and that they've seen improvements in reading, counting, and also in the health of their child. But the really key thing that I want to draw your attention to is that 95% of them said they couldn't find any alternative product or service to Ubongo Edutainment, which shows that there's really a need for more content and more localized edutainment out there. Our approach is to adapt content for wherever children are. So it's currently available in English, Swahili, French, and many other local African languages. And we're constantly working with adaptation partners across Africa to adapt content and dub it into even more languages, so that children can access it in the language that they're speaking at home as well. That's also something very important to us.
Cliodhna, so, I'm sorry, but your time is up, so I will give you a few seconds to wrap up. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I'm going to share the links to our YouTube channels. I know there was trouble with videos, so I didn't want to risk trying to show you some of our cartoons, but I'll drop the links in the chat box and you can explore them. And please do reach out if you have any questions or if you want to discuss partnership going forward. Thank you.
Thank you again to Cliodhna, and thank you to all the presenters. and for the work that you do, and for the very interesting presentations that capture your work. I would like to open a floor for a discussion among us, and I encourage the audience to post any questions if you have to the presenters. We will try to address them. But as the moderator, as I was viewing the videos of your presentations in preparation for this session, and as I am listening to you right now and also thinking about what is happening in the world, there are a few questions in my mind, and I was wondering whether we can talk about those questions. And the first question, I feel like it's an elephant in the room, right? It's basically, what is the role of technology in COVID and post-COVID world in your point of view, and whether the COVID had any impact on the work you do? Namely, did it have any impact how you think about the technology on which you are working? So I would like us to start with this question, and if you have any insights, please feel free to jump in.
Thinking of alpha tiles specifically, we just began development in June. So this is actually one of those examples of in response to COVID. I have a lot more time on my hands than I had a year ago. And so we're doing some testing with Mexican and Romanian languages, but it's very, very early days, and we'd love to work with anybody. Generally, one of SIL's responses has been to just produce COVID posters, and I don't think it's 1,000 languages, but in hundreds of languages, to share on social media platforms with basic hygiene guidance during the COVID epidemic.
Go ahead, Simon.
COVID has been unfortunate for this project. The two apps that I just showed were scheduled to be evaluated in a random control trial. Johns Hopkins was going to run 2 parallel trainings, one with a live trainer alone, the traditional way, and one with an ICT-supported trainer. And then they are going to evaluate the performance of the counselors who received those trainings, the symptoms of the clients of those counselors, and go down another generation to the trainees who then graduated from those who were trained in the first generation. So that whole evaluation, which was supposed to last several years and was going to be really kind of a gold standard RCT trial, is on pause until COVID allows more human contact in Zambia. And that's a shame, because I think it's a great contribution to the research on ICT tools. Can tech really improve a face-to-face training? But that aside, the methodology employed within the app, I mentioned IAI, which comes from a long tradition of radio education, interactive radio education, as it's called when it's broadcast. Mm-hmm. And that's something else that EDC does a lot of work in. And it has absolutely gone gangbusters because of COVID. Reaching the world's school-going population when they don't have an internet channel is really only possible via radio. And the data is very clear that static radio, one-directional radio, just lecturing, is not nearly as effective as interactive radio. So there's a tremendous amount of interest in IRI right now from around the world as people try and get primary grades instruction delivered into homes. And again, this is something that can be done with parents when you have IRI, because the bulk of the instruction is handled by the voice in the studio. The role of the parent in the home, they don't really need to understand the content that is being taught. They just need to be able to be there to play the more human role of encouraging and reinforcing. So it's kind of an old technology now to talk about radio, but it's extremely current because all of the high-tech stuff really isn't able to respond to COVID in the same way.
Interesting. I was wondering, Maria and Cliodhna, whether you have any insights about the role of technology in kind of COVID and post-COVID world, and whether the COVID, had any impact on how you think about the tools on which you are working.
Yeah, like for Sunbooks, it has been a big challenge but it has also like been an opportunity to understand like the importance of getting like these technologies in for these remote communities, because like these children, they don't have access to any kind of resource, and for those that we have some of the tablets and we allow them to take them home, and this was the only opportunity for them to read or to study, because not having even a radio or TV or anything, so this was the only chance for them to study. And at the end is like we have seen like the importance of like giving more and more resources for children in these locations. Like there were also some reading bubbles like organized by some of the teachers, and they were like going by little groups to develop like some classes. But we have seen like also as an opportunity for like maybe not having very crowded classrooms, but how we can in the future somehow have blended learning. Like it is like incredible like how like children are like 80 children in a classroom. It's very hard for teachers, very, very hard in a context. So I would say like this is also an opportunity to move towards other kind of approaches in which we can provide more education of quality.
Yeah, I would say for Ubongo, the experience has been really interesting and quite similar to what other people have said. I think before the pandemic, there was kind of a sense that TV and radio were old tech, and they weren't very attractive to many people as a funding opportunity, or even for parents, the demand was kind of to get their children using the most high-tech solution. And then the pandemic really showed us that actually the most effective tools are the ones that are reaching huge numbers of children, and those are TV, radio. Yeah, so I think for us, it did give us a challenge in that we noticed a huge demand for our content, way more than we could have really imagined would come this year. And we have scaled up to many countries that were in our 5-year plan. We have scaled up to in just 6 months because of that demand. But then the challenge is that people are looking for so much new content, but in many cases, you know, for a while we couldn't get voice actors into studio, especially in some of the countries that we're adapting for. They're still on lockdown, so the adaptation partners can't meet to do their work. So that did definitely present a challenge, and how we responded to that was really to dig into our archives. We've repurposed a lot of old content into PSAs. We've also there was some content that we had planned for, you know, for our new season launch that we realized actually it's really relevant right now and we just need to get it out there. So it has kind of, you know, disrupted the usual flow of things. And now we're kind of in a place, I think, where things are settling, and we're seeing that, you know, I think globally people have realized that, you know, TV and radio are here to stay. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And yeah, so I feel like that has been the major kind of reawakening that we've noticed.
Thank you. And as especially Simon and Cliodhna were speaking, I was thinking about this issue of digital divide, you know, because that's what COVID even showed to us, kind of further kind of confirmed, because we were aware of the issue of digital divide pre-COVID, right? But I think it became even more prominent, right? But if I looked at your tools which you are developing, your products, as I understand, all of them rely on some form of technology, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a radio, low tech, you know, high tech, medium tech. So how do you address, maybe in your own work, but overall, how do you see this issue of addressing the digital divide, you know, and how you're trying to navigate that issue in your own work?
One topic I'm really interested in, have information is that there's more country-specific data now on who has smartphones, and then usually that's also segmented by whether it's Android or iOS. And in certain countries, it's 95% Android, but in other countries, it's 50%. One thing I've been thinking more about is we should start researching the percentage of households that have Android devices instead of the percentage of individuals. When we work with communities, me as an American, I tend to think very individualistically about how I want to learn, entertain myself. But my METPA friends in Guerrero, Mexico, almost everything. So the idea that one person is going to play this app by themselves, I don't think that's what we ever see. I think one person plays while 5 people watch, and they comment on how they're doing it right or wrong and what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. So I've reached out to some folks, but if people have ideas, I think that's what I've been thinking about recently is how do we find out the percentage of households that have Android devices? Because if you're working on, that's what alphabetizes outside the formal educational system, that's where it's going to be played. It's going to be played in groups, even if it's designed for a single person.
I think, Aaron, you really highlighted something, one of the key reasons why I think this pandemic was challenging, because especially for us who work in areas where people do use their devices communally, this pandemic posed this huge challenge because, usually you can take a USB stick to, in Tanzania, they call them video bandas. So they have kind of shared watching spaces. And we could just take a USB stick there and screen an episode to many, many families. And the same thing with a device. Parents can call together groups of children to show them the same piece of content. But then when families are on lockdown, it has really highlighted kind of a challenge with that approach. And I think for us who are providers of content for tech-based solutions, I think we really have a role to play in advocating for increased access and to bridge that digital divide. I know in some of the countries we work in, we do have data on the percentage of devices, and most of the time we find they are Android devices across the countries that Ubongo work in. So I can share some of that data with you, but I think globally there's really a need for a lot more data on this, and it's something that I think we can definitely we should definitely be advocating for.
Maria and Simon, I was wondering whether you would like to jump in on this topic as well.
Go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, yeah, it's actually very challenging, especially in remote communities, because most of them, they don't have even phones or this other type of devices. So we are looking for donations or different types of funding the program in order to provide more of these devices. And we have the software that we use is adaptable to different types of it could be phone, or it could be tablets or the PC. But I mean, we still need we acknowledge that it's very challenging to get all these resources, and we just make a call for getting more of this. And there is another approach that we want to do in the near future, which is involving the communities in the creation of content, as I mentioned, creating books, etc. So then they can be we can even somehow partnership with them and sell their own books to self-funding. So this is more sustainable approach for the near future. So yeah, this is a step-by-step process, but yeah, it's a matter of getting the resources.
So a couple of points spring to mind. First is that when you're trying to address the digital divide and you're designing for ICT in general, I think the first rule is try and make product which is going to work on machines that people already own. Design for what's out there, not for what's going to be out there soon, or not what's currently cutting edge or cool. And so the most commonly owned device still today, even after the proliferation of mobiles, is a radio. There's more households with radios around the world than anything else. So if you can get your content on radio, that's the first step towards bridging the divide. Secondly, and this is a really important point that Maria just made, is having people make their own content. This is also the basis of Aaron's presentation, right? Digital divide is more than having a machine to access things. It's also having a machine to access things that are relevant to you. And even if you have a high-speed connection and a mobile device, and you're able to get stuff from the Google Play Store, you're not downloading games that have been made by people in your culture, unless you come from Silicon Valley or some tech hub. And there's inherent biases in everything that you are viewing and downloading. So what we need are coders from cultures around the world. And in lieu of that, we need software platforms until those coders can be developed, can build up their skills, software platforms that novices can use to make their own apps in their own languages, with their own artwork and representing their own peoples. And I didn't go into this in my presentation, but that's the platform that we use for the JHU training app. It's called Stepping Stone. It's an open source app making platform. And you can use Stepping Stone. Contact me if you'd like to get access to it. You can use Stepping Stone to produce apps, even if you don't have any coding skill. You can make an app like you make a PowerPoint presentation. And so having people make their own content is a huge step in the right direction. But thirdly, and this is what we're finding out in response to COVID, is that it's possible to make the same product in different formats, which are available to different people according to the extent of their digital divide. So in Zambia, for example, right now, our teacher training project has got teacher training tips, which are going out on radio, formatted for radio, audio only. But then you take the same teacher training tip and you make it into a video which is short and small enough that it can be shared via WhatsApp. So that second tier of teachers who have smartphones can get the same content, but it's a little richer. They can hear the audio as well as see slides or visuals that are synchronized. But then you have a third version, which is longer, which you put on YouTube. And so your folks with laptops or who can stream on a broadband connection, they can get the full package. So the digital divide is still there, but it's shortened in that the same basic content is going out to everybody in different levels of format.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear your thoughts on that. For the audience, I would like to remind that if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. It's a good time to do that right now. Kind of my last question to you as the group. I'm working at the International Development Research Center, and one of the topics which we are researching this whole idea of scaling, right? And we can talk about scale in different ways. We can talk about the expansion of coverage, change of policy, and so on and so forth. But from your point of view, what is the optimal scale for scaling technology? What are your thoughts about that?
I guess scale really depends on the technology that you're talking about and the content that you're talking about. If you're dealing with a school system and you're trying to teach trainers, you're trying to teach teachers how to be better instructors of reading, then scale is probably nationwide. You want to be in every school in the country. You want to be public and private school. You probably even want to be in households for kids who aren't going to school. So scale is expansive in that case. But if you're talking about scaling a health intervention, which is dealing with a relatively small number of cases, maybe it's a rare disease or something, then it looks very different. So it's a difficult question to ask unless we're specific about the technical field and the technology.
But even if you think in the context of your own products, in the context of your own technology, what do you think would be the optimal scale for your own products? And whether you think the idea of scaling, or it's something that you don't really engage?
Well, what's the problem that you're trying to address? That's the first question that comes to mind. And in the case of JHU and their CETA training protocol, they're trying to address mental health issues like substance abuse and domestic violence. And so where do those problems exist in the world? It's everywhere. Like, it's every human society faces mental health issues like that. So scale is literally the entire world. And that's what the band of human trainers is doing. They're going to Iraq, and then to Papua New Guinea, and then to Syria, and then to Zambia. So I think that in our case, we're testing it at scale in Zambia, and that means trying to get to all communities around the country. But the ambition is to make counseling services available to everybody on the planet.
Thank you. I will, Aaron or Maria, and I don't know whether Cliodhna is still with us, whether you would like to add anything to that.
Like for us, for Sunbooks, our way of scaling, it is about having, getting more remote communities, getting to all these remote communities that need these resources, but encouraging more and more communities to be creators of stories, like teachers as creators, students as creators. And we want to build this community of global writers in which we can interchange stories from one remote community to another. And they can like learn and to see like the differences, their common things, and like also to learn more about these social emotional skills and global citizenship. So actually was doing last semester my research about global citizenship in Sunbooks program, and we just did like a pilot stage there, but it's something that we would like to motivate more of these remote communities to write and to read, because literacy is about this, about writing, but reading and writing. And we find like these resources, because like there are no books there in these remote communities, and this becomes the only source. So we find interesting to see the possibilities of encouraging communities to learn from each other wherever they are.
Thank you. Aaron or Cliodhna, I was wondering whether you would like to come in on that topic.
For me, when I think about scaling and in the context of the app we're working on, yeah, it's thinking about the 7,000 languages on Earth, and that's obviously ambitious, given that there's more than 1,000 languages that don't even have an orthography. So that makes making a literacy-based app hard to do. And in SIL, we're not experts in app making, and there's other people presenting at this conference that, like, including the people here, I'm very excited about what they're doing. Our expertise is in linguistics and then the languages of the world. So when I think about scaling, something that would be very exciting to me would be if different organizations could come up with some kind of like ISO standardized language pack. Okay, you've got a word list, you've got audio files and image files, but several organizations have agreed that this is how it's going to be formatted, this is how it's going to be structured. And then different app developers, media content creators know that in their programming, they can access language files, and it's going to be standardized in just such a way that you can rapidly make new content for a variety of languages. But if we're all managing separate data sets and then plugging them into different platforms, it's going to slow us down to scale to the 7,000 languages of the world. So the different platforms isn't the issue. The issue is, could we come up with some kind of standardized data source, language pack, and then everybody could access that to make all kinds of cool content for people. So that's kind of my dream for scaling.
Nice, nice. And like, I think there is a comment from Michael to Aaron, what you have just said, like UTF-8, not for characters, but for language. So to be honest, I don't know what it means, but I'm sure that you know what Michael is talking about. But Cliodhna, I was just wondering whether you would like to come in on the topic of scaling and add anything to the conversation.
Yeah, I think I can really relate to what Aaron has just said, because also for us, our concern is that our aim for Scale is to reach every African child with our content in some form or another to improve learning outcomes for them. So what that will involve is really to be able to find adaptation partners for many different languages that we have not yet managed to adapt our content into. And then the challenge there, which I'm sure you're aware, is that even there might be a language of instruction in a country, but the language spoken in the home might be a very different language to that one. So it's also looking at how do we make that content accessible to more children. And then there's also a group that's often forgotten in the kind of edutainment and learning space, which is children with disabilities. So finding ways that we can actually create content that will also support children with disabilities in their learning needs. So to make content more accessible to them, but also to include them in the content creation process. And that's something that we're really prioritizing at the moment to actually co-create content with children with a variety of different learning needs, so that our content can really, so that we can really say that our content is for every child and not just for a specific subset of children. And I have to apologize for my low light. My power went out, so I'm just using backup lights at the moment.
That's okay. In the chat, I shared with you a book that was actually recently published by IDRC. It's about this scaling impact, impact idea. And one of the arguments of the book that we should talk about the optimal scale, that going for the expansion of coverage is not always a good idea, because it can actually contribute to the reproduction of some issues of inequity, right? And that we really need to consider ideas of equity, equality, efficiency as and sustainability as we go to scale, because something that we have at a small scale and we think is equitable of a good quality, if we go to a larger scale, the product might lose those qualities. So that's kind of where the idea of optimal scale comes in, because the optimal scale will try to incorporate all of those ideas of equity, equality, efficiency, and sustainability. So I encourage you to look into that, especially if you are interested in the topic of scaling. We have reached the end of our session, and I would like to thank you again one more time for your interesting presentations and for the engaging conversation, and also would like to wish you good luck in your future endeavors, especially in this uneasy time that we don't know when it's going to be over, or what kind of impact it's going to have on our future work. So good luck on what you do, and again, enjoy the symposium, and it was a great pleasure for me to moderate this session and learn from you.
Very much, Serhiy. Good job.
Thank you, Serhiy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.